Today we're taking a look at the Slava, really the most feast or famine battleship in the entire game. This ship absolutely crushes broadsides, probably one of the most consistent battleships at crushing broadsides in the game. Unfortunately, it's not so good when people angle. But today, yeah, people are going to show a lot of broadsides, so we're feasting. Here comes the Yoshino out broadside. He makes a smart play, as smart as a play you can make for rushing in early, and turns in to avoid most of our salvo. I get a pretty lucky little stray shell that hits him into his citadel, but a decent way to start this game. I love taking this position early on in this map. People so often are pushing across towards the A cap, and it's just free broadsides from here. I just happen to have a Yoshino on the enemy team that pushed into B, and that is one of the reasons why I don't want to push too far towards C early on. I want to catch these targets of opportunity. And yeah, we're not missing that one. That one was a little too free. So devastating strike, first blood. And that gets us halfway to 100k in the first few minutes of the match. And like I said, people don't really pay attention when they're pushing A. They look basically only at the 1, 2, 3 line. So this Monty, he's going to show broadside to us. This is a 20-kilometer shot, and Montana, of course, does have a waterline citadel. It's pretty difficult to hit, but the Slava has pretty good dispersion at range. And yeah. So yeah, 83k and 3 salvos. That's why you want Slava, right? If you have the research points, this is a pretty solid battleship. I do think that overall, Ohio is going to be better in more situations. It's a little more versatile. But man, Slava fits this meta so well. If you're not really one to push in a battleship, or you find that you die a lot, or just don't even like brawling it out, you just want to have a relaxing, sit back and snipe kind of game, this ship is perfect. I'm not sure if you should get it first, though. There's some other Research Bureau ships, but there's no denying that Slava is a pretty solid pick. It won't always give you the most amazing salvos, but it's reasonably consistent. And this game is a good example of, at least early on, just getting amazing dispersion, right? Broadside Yamato at this range, 15 kilometers, and we're barely leading at all. That's the other thing. It's got insane shell velocity, 40k, just like that. And yeah, like 4 minutes into this game, 133k. It feels pretty good when these games happen. Ohio, of course, has pretty good dispersion in its own right, but it really does lack shell velocity. So catching some of those broadsides can be a little difficult. And of course, at longer ranges, shells coming in at a steeper angle, they might bounce, or they might just shatter on some battleship armor at longer ranges. We might not have been able to deal that massive blow to that Monty if I was in an Ohio. Unfortunately for me, I was in a really good position there in that channel, but nobody was getting spotted around that smoke. So I had to move on towards the C cap. And this is a map where it really comes down to holding this gap between B and C, and then whatever team wins the 1, 2, 3 lines gets free flanking shots in on the enemy team trying to hold this middle channel. So we have a Kremlin here pushed up on our team and on the enemy team, actually. I nearly make a massive error here. As you can see, I get very lucky that I go dark for just an instant. I get undetected, I should say, for just an instant, and that throws off that Kremlin's shot. I get very, very lucky there. I could have taken a huge hit. Since Slava, of course, does not have Kremlin armor. It looks like a Kremlin, but it doesn't have Kremlin armor. The bow is much weaker. The deck armor is way weaker as well. And crucially, the Citadel is, I think, 100 millimeters less armor. It's a lot, so it's much easier to Citadel a Slava. And that's all on top of Slava having less HP. So all of this, of course, leads to Slava wanting to play back and snipe. But that doesn't mean you have to sit at the back all the time. It just means that it doesn't want to undergo sustained fire. So that's why I'm sitting here. I'm just hanging out here in the C cap, waiting for the enemy team to push in. Our team eventually is actually going to do a good job of controlling the A flank. Yeah, the dispersion can help against destroyers as well. Even full pens, or over pens, I should say, with the armor piercing, that hurts a destroyer, especially if you hit a lot of those shells. But this is a good position to be in because it forces the enemy team to fully commit to try and kill me. I'm not sitting out in the open, getting farmed and dying. That would be a very easy way to lose a Slava. But forcing them to come around a corner like this where I do have some backup, there's a Minotaur around, there's a Nevsky around, even this Sherman could easily smoke up. And there you can see a little bit of the unfortunate side. Dispersion can still troll this ship. That's one of the reasons I really like this replay. It shows the absolute insanity of what this ship can do to broadsides. But sometimes, I mean, this time there's a storm, right? So that does impact our dispersion. But even without storms, sometimes the Slava just doesn't connect on broadsides. And that can be frustrating. So I do want to show that as a bit of a more realistic view of the ship. It's not just those insane games where you're only getting citadels, but they do happen a lot if people show broadside and you're aiming correctly. A little while later into this game, I push up a little bit to try and hold on to C here. You notice that we've lost a few of our teammates, and I wanted to catch this Guden out a little bit. But I don't want to rush too far because there's destroyers around, and that's a great way to die quickly. So one of the best parts about the Slava and the Kremlin hull in this situation is the acceleration. We're able to reverse extremely quickly out of these bad situations. I talk about this in my Kremlin videos when I'm playing that ship, and I take propulsion mod on a Kremlin where I'm trying to tank, and the maneuverability bonus you get from propulsion mod is just amazing. It makes it actually a very difficult target to hit. So we're trying to take that here on the Slava. Of course, we don't have the HP and the armor to really tank, but that extra maneuverability can definitely be extremely helpful in some of these situations where you get yourself caught out or you need to stop and reverse or accelerate quickly to maybe dodge some torpedoes, for example. And yes, we do manage to get 2 more citadels, bringing us up to 10. 10 citadels. Games like that certainly don't happen all the time, but in a Slava, they tend to happen a little more often than the average battleship. As for the build on the Slava, I'm just pulling my Kremlin captain over, so pretty standard stuff here. I do think that Grease the Gears is extremely important on this ship, since the turret traverse is atrocious. 43-second turret traverse with the Grease the Gear upgrade skill. And this is for 406mm guns, keep that in mind. Not a lot of overmatch here, but of course, it's that devastating accuracy that you're really paying for in some of the weaknesses of this ship, like the armor. Yeah, 25, 32, it's not amazing, is it? But really, it is worth it for these guns. It's very fun to play with, so I really do think that this is a ship worth getting if you're already into that research points ecosystem, right? It's a lot of regrinds to do to get this ship. But as far as the upgrades go, I've been trying to use main battery a little bit more. Range can be a ton of fun, right? Getting 28 kilometers of range, something like that. You're sniping all the way across the map with great accuracy and devastating firepower. But having reload is kind of nice for some of those situations, like on that Yoshino early on. With range, I probably don't get that second salvo in as he disappears behind the island. Of course, we're running aiming systems mod, and I'm actually running auxiliary armaments. This is actually to keep my AA alive, and it's surprisingly good. You get really, really nuts range, 6.6 kilometer range, and it does pretty good damage as well. And unlike Kremlin, these mounts actually do manage to stay alive. And it can be useful since Slava tends to be a bit of a target of priority to take out, since people do seem to think this is a pretty strong ship. And I'd have to agree. I have a lot of fun in this ship, although part of me really just wants to brawl it out, and that's really not what this ship is meant for. So let me know what you think about the Slava in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.